When life changes, money changes, and when money changes, life changes. Hi, I'm Susan Bradley. I'm the founder of the Sudden Money Institute and the Financial Transitionist Institute. And I'm happy to be with you here today to give you an introduction to working with clients in transition. The way I'd like to set this up is to spend the first 10 minutes on the basics of the human experience of transition that I think are essential for financial planners to be aware of. And then we'll spend about 20 minutes on some cases using a tool, the decision-free zone, that we have been using for about 20 years. I think you'll find that it is applicable to your current clients in transition, but to all your other clients as well. So I hope that that one is a good takeaway for you. And then at the end, I want to spend some time on the managing stress during transition. I'll give you a mindset reset exercise to help boost clients' resilience during times of transition. So let's start out with my belief, my underlying belief, so that you see where I'm coming from. I believe the future is human. I believe the next great age that we deal with in the financial planning world and outside the financial planning world, for that matter, is the age of the human being. We're now apparently in the age of acceleration, which was preceded by the age of technology and so forth. And what that means is these ages, there's a dominant theme, and we have to adapt to that theme. So we've adapted to technology and to the acceleration age. But what does that mean to adapt to the age of the human being? It means that we're going to have to prepare ourselves with new skill sets to really honor the human experience. And that's what transitions are really all about. They are much more of a personal experience than a technical experience. And the skill set for dealing with the human side of things, particularly in transition, needs to be science-based. These are critical times. You don't want to be winging it. You really need to draw from neurology, psychology, sociology, physiology, adaptive change, and so forth. The process needs to be repeatable. It's the repetition, it's the habit of process that makes the difference when clients' lives are in motion, and sometimes in chaotic motion. The tools that we develop for transitions and for this new age of the human being need to be universal. They need to be applicable to clients regardless of their net worth, their gender, their preparation, their sophistication, their education, or even their readiness. They have to be able to be effective with all your clients, and you learn to adapt and to refine and to adjust so that you fit the client, the human being, the individual. But the tools themselves need to be universal. And I think as we learn more about this great profession that we've entered and that we are building, that one of the biggest requirements for excellence is continuous learning. And that's that last line there, mastery versus master. It's a dedication to mastering as opposed to becoming a master of a subject. The transition events we're talking about are common to financial planning. They say, the data says, that the primary reason people hire advisors is because of transitions. The events that are shown here: inheritance, sale of a business, death, divorce, health within families, health within individuals, major careers. There's all kinds of events that cause clients' lives to pivot. And they hire you through the door of finance right now, but they're coming to you with their lives in motion as well as their money in motion. And some of the things that we know for sure that happen, the universal aspects, are all transitions begin with an ending. Some part of life, some chapter of life is over, and there is no going back. They also take longer than people expect or want. We hear from the grief recovery people that widows, for example, take about 5 years to feel normal again. All the events have their own time frames, and people have their own personal time frames, but I will guarantee you that it feels like it's taking longer than it should. Common experience. There are often times of confusion, including sleep deprivation and drop in cognitive functioning, a sense of overwhelm or isolation. But there's always an opportunity there, and there is no profession that I have come across that is so ideally suited to identifying and working with that opportunity to help clients rebuild their lives, to create the next great chapter of their life each and every time their life pivots. And those pivots happen in an interesting sequence, very interesting for us as planners to know that it is a transit, a movement from one stage to another. We say from what was to what will be. That time in between is the transition. And it begins as soon as an event is identified, even if it's not guaranteed. Anticipation stage means that the client is actively thinking about an event that is coming in the future. Maybe the date is unknown and the amount is unknown, and maybe it's not even guaranteed to be happening, but it's influencing them now. It's influencing their commitments, hard and soft, their decisions. So obviously there's a big role for financial planning there. That's the beginning of financial transitions planning. The ending stage is when the event has happened, the money has moved or is in the process of moving. The decision has been made, the contracts have been signed. This is a time of a lot of easy to identify moving parts that are all critical and that draw on your technical expertise. Ending stage can take a year or two depending upon complexity. But once all the big pieces are put back together, it feels like everything is taken care of. But what's happening is that human being, that client of yours, is moving into the passage stage. The passage stage is measured in years, not in months. And you see from this graphic, it's a bigger circle and it's darker and there's more things happening. And if you show this to a client, they will tell you about some of those arrows. They can feel that. It really strikes an emotional chord with people, because in the passage stage, people think they should be done, but they're not. They're retooling, they're rebooting, they're rethinking, they're refining. And if they can do that with you in an active, productive way within the context of your relationship, it makes their transition more productive, more comfortable. Might not shorten it, but it can certainly impact the outcome into that new normal. And in the new normal, it's a time of predictable patterns and knowledge of what's going on. There's a comfort, there's a looking forward, but you can also help people remember how they got there. What tools, what process helps them get there, so they're confident the next time life changes, which it will if they're still breathing, there's another event ahead for them, but they know that they understand how to do it and that you're there to help guide them each time life pivots. There are three basic outcomes from transitions. The one that we hear the most about in the media and all is the regret side of it. That's when people lose either their finances or their relationships or both, or maybe their identity and self-esteem. The most normal, the most common is a survival experience where the money's intact, the relationships are intact, and people are moving forward. But the one that we can strive for, the one that would make so much difference in the lives of our clients and all the people that touch their life, is this sense of transformation. And if we really get this right in the financial planning world, we can help people in transition really transform, become another aspect, another part of themselves. And if we can get that right, then we have really elevated the profession, and we've elevated the experience one client at a time. So we're all about going for the transformation side. And to understand that, we had to go backwards and we had to look at the basic setup of money and financial planning. And we can see that there are two sides, the technical and the personal. I have a fundamental belief that all of this is based on, that these two sides are equally important and equally complex. The interesting thing is that the personal side drives decision making. So that personal side, and you see it in the graphic, says relationships, emotions, hopes, dreams, self-esteem, and a sense of well-being. That's pretty subjective stuff. That's, as it says, the personal side. That's the human experience. And that's really how people judge one of those three outcomes of regret, survival, or transformation. But to understand that personal side, to really show up for the equal complexity and the equal importance, we had to build some process. So we built the process on the personal side. There's not time to go into a lot of that right now, but think of it fundamentally. We had to start to understand what the human experience of transition feels like to the client, what it looks like, what it sounds like. We also have to understand ourselves when we're working with clients in transition, as we're observing, as we're paying attention to what they feel like, look like, and sound like. So this becomes an area of study. And the way we approached it, and I hope this is helpful for you, is that we looked at traits of transition, divided them into positive and negative flow traits. Positive struggle traits means that there's some challenge there. And we have named 9 reoccurring traits that we see. And part of the materials that we'll be giving you with this session is this chart. And I hope that you could use this chart as a reference point for when you're meeting with clients. You want to be able to identify, to name, and to meet the challenges on the struggle side. And on the flow side, you want to enhance the experience that they're having. The flow side means that they're ready to move forward more, and that they have their cognitive capability and more of themselves ready to move forward. For you to join them on that and help them with that is a tremendous value to them. So when we talk about this, we're looking at this being working with clients in transition. We want to assemble knowledge, tools, and process. And if you can put together your skill set for working with clients in transition, if you have process, you can be more present. You don't want to be winging this with your clients in transition. So find the process that works for you, that is repeatable and is universal. And if you keep building habits, the habit of being present, the habit of deep listening, the habit of really thinking about what it feels like to be the client, and using your own process and tools to guide them and keep them safe, you eventually develop what we're calling informed intuition. And that's part of being present as an expert, but letting the client really be the driver. On the personal side, you're providing the technical, and you're meeting them and guiding them on the personal side. So that's a lot to ask without showing you any tools. So I'm sure that you will be exploring this and finding many resources. But one resource that I'd like to share with you is called the Decision-Free Zone. And it's a proactive time out from making non-essential decisions and commitments. That was the one thing I could identify about people going through sudden money and life transition events, was the challenge of making good decisions in a timely manner. What was that process? So we came up with this idea of a decision-free zone. It doesn't mean a no decision zone. And it's a time to sort and prioritize by timeline and urgency. We wanted to have a way for clients to co-create the timeline for their activities and get just a few things done, a few urgent, important things done at a time. So we sort by now, which is important and urgent, very timely kind of things. Soon, which means that it's important. A lot of the planning is important, but it's not urgent. You can move your way into that. But there may be some fires to put out, some drop dead time frames for now things. So soon is important, but not urgent, and later means you just need more time to process, more time for things to settle down, more information. The now, soon, and later decision-free zone list becomes organic. So things that are on the now list get taken care of, things that are on the soon list move up, and so on. And it gives the client, if you keep it as a visual for the client, it gives them a strong sense of completion and competency. So some of the coaching tips that I'd like to share with you is, first, to avoid calling it a no decision zone. It is a very specific decision-making process. The intention is to free the client up to make a few good decisions at a time, rather than to feel overwhelmed by too many decisions. The idea is to discuss it with the client, help them really get what I call the noise in their head calm down, turn down the volume, help them become clear when they start to see some order happening. It can feel just so overwhelming with too much going on. And it'll be easier to think and to see options and to understand sequences. So if you're talking about this is point number 3 there, and you're talking about this with a client, the reason we do that, by the way, is we believe in co-creating process with clients. Instead of doing something for them, to them, we'd rather be doing it with them. So we want to give them these heads up. It will calm down the noise in the head. It'll be easier to think and see options. It helps find and articulate the boundaries and manage the expectations of friends and family. Usually when life is changing, well-meaning people as well as predatory people have a tendency to have their 2 cents heard all the time, which is part of the confusion. And then if you can get through this decision-free zone, you'll make sure that the essentials are always being taken care of. We suggest that you use a 1-page overview whenever possible. It helps people to have you communicate with them in a visual way. It takes less brain power to visually understand something than it does to read. And then, of course, you're moving the soon up to the now as you progress. And when you have a client who wants to do something that they're just clearly not ready for, rather than telling them we're not ready for it, at least you put it on the later list so they know that you understood it, that it's there. And if they get antsy and they want to get going on something, you can again show them it's there. We're not ready for it yet, but we're getting there. And it's helpful to keep the decision-free zone visible at meetings and kind of as a historic record that they're actually moving forward, or to give them context of why they're not moving forward at a particular time. So Dr. Moira Summers, who is a faculty member with us and a PhD in clinical psychology, says the DFZ addresses one of the major external contributors to non-adherence, namely new and hugely competing demands on the client's time, energy, and personal resources. Trying to do everything at once usually results in many things being done incompletely, unsatisfactorily, or not at all. The decision-free zone helps put a stop to the depletion of the client's physical, mental, and emotional resources. So this is one of the most wonderful things that you can do for a client, is to help them create a calm mind state, and to increase their capacity to manage all that's coming towards them when they're going through transition. If you get it right, you should see signs of relief. It could be in their body language. They should look and feel more calm, and they should sound more ready. Relief, calm, and ready are things that you're looking for. Relief, calm, and ready. And that can happen just through the exercises that I'm going to show you, or I'm going to share with you in just a moment. Relief, calm, and ready. That's a nice shift that you can see working with the client just there, shoulder to shoulder or FaceTime to FaceTime. So The definition of the three aspects now is the actions you feel that are essential and need immediate attention. You could also note who needs to do this, who's going to take care of it, and a date if that needs to be there. The soon items are action steps and items that are important to do soon but don't have the same urgency as now. And later important items and decisions that need to be postponed until you have more time to organize and plan. And it may also include some things that would be nice to accomplish once your other priorities are met. You can use this to discuss the decision-free zone with your client. So you have these three definitions, which should help you co-create a decision-free zone list for the client right from the very beginning of the conversation around transitions. So the steps are pretty easy. You're asking people to tell you what's going on, what's on their mind, not what they should do, but you want to know more. You want to know, are they sleeping? What about other people in their lives? How does it feel? What do they think about this? And tell me more about that. It's a active, deep listening, curiosity kind of thing. So it says here, act, listen, ask, listen, ask, listen. So once you have the whole story out, you want to create a one-word visual scatter. I'll be showing you an example of that. Again, you want to get to the visual. And then you want to visually organize by topic, and then you want to prioritize. So here's an example. This is a woman who had an eminent domain settlement. So she lost her landscaping business in that, but she had liquidity, she had cash. And she wanted to have somebody invest the money so this whole nightmare could be over. And as she comes in and explains her story, at first it's, can you just invest this money for me and just take care of it? So she was looking for a transaction, and a financial planner, of course, can't do that. You need to know much more about someone before you can start to do that. So you need to hear the story. So as you hear the story, you find a lot of confusion about what next for career. She's 60, she's vital, she has lots of talent and energy, but she's kind of worn out to the bone. So she's thinking about different ideas of buying other businesses or maybe changing careers. She doesn't know what she's going to do with her house, to buy a house, to rent the house, to sell her house. She has all kinds of ideas. She wants to invest the money. She wants to go away and have some fun for a change. She wants to get some income. She wants to find a job. So there's a lot going on. By taking that conversation and putting it into this, what we call a scatter, lets her see that there's, of course she's overwhelmed. Look at, there's so much going on. And it also mirrors her experience. So that's normalizing. And then it also takes all this noise that's in her head and it shows up on a piece of paper. So you're starting to organize it right there with the first round. And then what we do is we turn it into thought clouds and we organize it by topic. And so you'll see that on the upper left, you'll see in purple anything to do with the business and career. And on the upper right, you see it has to do with the house and where she's going to live. The lower right, it's about the investing and cash flow. And then you see the go away and have fun. But notice that there's two more big topics that are on this page that weren't on the first. One, it says finish divorce. That's right over her head there in black. And as you get through this story, you find out that she's been in sort of this nowhere zone with divorce for 5 years. And you ask more about that and you find out, well, one reason is because she thinks he doesn't want to get divorced because he knew that her parents had money and he wanted to hang out and cash in on that. And so the natural thing to do would be to say, so tell me about your parents. And it turns out that her parents had died and that she had inherited a home. She has a contract on that, and that she's trying to decide what to do with their commercial properties. So that never even showed up in the first conversation. She wasn't thinking about that. So these are two critical aspects that show up as you listen to people and you encourage more of the story. So we don't have time to go into all the things that she did with this, but in her now, soon, and later, because you don't want to leave someone with all the the pictures of the scatter, even if they're somewhat organized. You want to bring it into something like this. So for her now list, it was to explore businesses but delay purchases, to find the right health insurance policy, and to delay the anything to do with her house, but she could prepare her house, to sell the client or the parents' home, but put the money in a separate account, put the settlement money from the eminent domain into short-term accounts, consolidate, and continue to with the divorce proceeding, amp up the pressure to settle. So that's more than enough. She doesn't need to do a full financial plan immediately. She can't do an investment policy and all of that because she really doesn't know enough. So getting those things, some of the things are there to protect her, some of the things are to move forward. That's enough to start with, and to set up some kind of a cash flow so she has 1 year of expenses was pretty high on the list for the soon list. So her story is a great story, and she survived all of this, and years later she had reinvented herself and was doing incredibly well. But I think you see this. You ask, you listen, you do the scatter, and then you organize it visually, then you bring it to this, and you work through the now pieces, and then by the end of the year she was certainly into the soon list. Another version of this came, and this is a very regrettable, tragic situation. It was a wife and mother committed suicide one Sunday afternoon. She was a doctor in practice with her husband, and they have 2 young children. She was in her early 40s, and her husband's first call was to his friend and financial planner, Aaron. And it was horrible for Aaron too, because she was a friend of the family. So you have to understand what it feels like to be you in these situations, and you need to have leadership and guidance. And in this case, Aaron really needed structure to be able to work with the surviving husband. So a support team was identified. There was an office manager, the husband, his brother, Aaron, the CEFT, and Lori was a bookkeeper. And you see that in this case, the now was to access personal banking information. The wife had managed all the family assets. The husband was used to getting a cash allowance once a week as walk-around money. And the circumstances really don't matter, but the financial part was all fine. Then there had to be a collection basket for all the bills. There was no way for him to be able to sit down and start to assume managing the family bills, which his wife had done. He needed copies of death certificates, final arrangements, and locate insurance policies. So the who is listed, and then the date completed is there. And then the soon was to keep the bills paid and identify the action plan for getting help at the office, discuss what needs to be done around the house, and so forth. So this is a very different kind of decision-free zone. In this case, Aaron didn't do the scatter. This was the way it was set up because there were so many people that were taking action. You see, Kathy and James and Lori and Tony and different people are listed here. So this is something that this planner has worked with this family, surviving family, for a couple of years now, and they keep coming back to the list. It's a fresh list. So what's on the soon now gets taken care of, soon comes up, and then the later gets established when they can get to it. So this is the decision-free zone. Hopefully this has helped you get a handle on a way to co-create the action plan with your clients. We're going to take a break now, and then when I come back, we're going to talk about stress and the transition experience. So now we come to the question of stress. Stress is an automatic part of the change management, life transition, human experience of managing all that happens in those big pivot points of life. And I know that stress sounds negative, but stress really is an interesting component, and it's a fascinating focus for us as financial planners, particularly in the financial transition planning space. So the big question is does stress increase capacity or decrease capacity? And we're talking about both physical and cognitive capacities. And the answer is it depends. It depends upon your mindset. It depends upon the client's mindset. What we worry about is stress having a negative impact, that it lowers executive functioning, that it has a long-term negative effect on the client's physiology, including sleep deprivation and other things that can result. So who manages the client's stress? It generally has been up to the client to figure it out. But the new research around mindset and stress is really quite fascinating. The whole concept of stress came about in the late 1930s from Dr. Hans Selye. And this is a simple definition of stress. It's a biological and physical response experienced on encountering a threat that we feel we don't have the resources to deal with. So if we feel something's coming at us and we can't manage it, that is the stress response. Now that could come from something that's good, like getting married, or it could be something that's really negative, like getting divorced, and parallel experience there. So the stress response itself comes in both distress and eustress experiences. But how you choose to manage that experience and to internalize that experience and indeed use it is really magical. And this is something that, well, I should say it used to be magical. You used to think of that more in a mystical zone almost. But now, as we know from neuropsychology, and we know the profession of financial planning, and you pull the two together in mindset work, there's an incredibly profound experience that you can start to build within the client themselves and increase their capacity to manage stress. Dr. Kelly McGonigal says stress happens when something you care about is at stake. And she says that it's a biological state that's designed to help you learn from experience. What she says that means is that your stress response is extremely receptive to the effects of deliberate practice. And what that means to you as a financial planner is if you can adopt the idea of a mindset reset, of helping your clients move from a fixed to a growth mindset, and you do this regularly, you will instill in your client, as well as in yourself, that natural tendency to respond versus react, to give yourself and give the client pause to absorb what's happening, and then find the best path to take, even if you don't know the full answer. You can really build this strong sense of resilience and capability around stressful experiences. And life is stressful, there's no question. But people come to you for the bigger stresses in their life, managing those major life events. This is definitely, to me, within the range of good financial planning. So why do it? Why do this mindset reset? I say you do it to harness the creative power of stress while minimizing the negative effects. And you can do it as you establish the habit of co-creating the belief that stress enhances the ability to find and test new possibilities. This is what a financial transitionist does. They establish the habit of talking with the client, co-creating the belief that stress enhances the ability to find and to test new possibilities. The experience is, I don't know the answer, you don't know the answer, but there are answers and they will unfold, and we have process for that, and we have steps to take. So let's start with that. So I'm going to give you a 3-step mindset reset. And at the end of this, you'll see some resources so you can and you should do some more research on this. So step 1 of the 3 steps is to see it and name it, what the feeling is. So we're saying, what are you experiencing? And mostly we want them to say, we want them to name it. What would you call it? There's an interesting body of work under the label of affect labeling. And what they basically say is when you can name the experience, you otherize it. So instead of saying, I am anxious, it's I'm feeling anxiety, and that makes the anxiety separate from you. And that changes your neuropsychology. It enhances right there your ability to deal with the situation by naming it. So you want to ask the client, what do you experience? What would you call it? And what do you think is happening? So see it, name it is step 1. Step 2 is to own it. So you want to know what feels like it's at stake. What's the change in the thing, the person, or the situation that you care about? What's happening, and what exactly are the stakes for you now? So you want them to see it and to own it, and then to move into the stress, to explore it, to embrace it. That's what you do. You understand these circumstances and stressors for clients so that you can be more helpful, so that you can bring your tools both on the technical and the personal side. If people can embrace it, it's much easier to deal with it. It's much easier to find the solutions and to understand it. And step 3 is to use it. So what we want to understand, again, financial planning is a unique profession for this. You want to help clients be open to the opportunities and the learning inherent in the stress. You can do that as a planner because you have an ongoing relationship with people. And each one of these mindset reset exercises helps people to find new opportunities and new learning inherent. So you're building a habit of embracing and moving towards the stress and learning from it and seeing within the experience some of the opportunities. You're creating narratives about their own resilience, that they've done this before. You're asking them to remember when they managed things like this well in the past. What values have remained throughout all the challenges that they've had in their life. You want them to create a I can do this narrative, even though I'm not sure how, and even though I don't know how long it will take, but somehow I can figure this out. You want them to stay in the game. Remember, transitions take a long time. So if you really embrace this, you will do this many times with clients. You want them to remember that they have social support, their friends, their colleagues, you, people in support groups. Social contact and community is essential for people that are managing big stress experiences, and they can gain strength and clarity by connecting socially with other people. And this is, again, unique to financial planning. You can help people continue to talk about the topic, and you can develop the habit of scenario testing. You already do scenario planning, but you might want to expand it and maybe deepen it a little bit, and maybe include some aspects that are not purely financial or technical. Help them what if their way through this. So you're continuing the conversation, and you may go back over these steps more than once with people. These are very meaningful, productive conversations, and you'll learn how to use these conversations to take the next step, even if it feels like they're taking a step into the client's wilderness because they don't know how things are going to work. That's okay. That's also part of working with clients in life transition events. So this is the conclusion. The last page of the slides here are some references that I would suggest that you check out. There are many more than these, but these are the ones that we have drawn from in this session on working with clients in transition. Thanks so much for allowing me to spend some time with you. I wish you well, and I wish your clients well as well. Thank you. So here are some references for you to continue your work in this area. I strongly suggest these. These are 3 that we have drawn from on this particular session. There are many more. I want to thank you for allowing me to spend time with you. I wish you great success today and in the new age of humanity and working with your clients through the major life events so they too can find that transformation experience over and over again. Thanks for the great work you do.